when we are factoring trinomials, there are some cases where you can factor them further. In the first example we saw on the previous slide, we ended up with a trinomial that we could have considered whether or not it could be factorized further. So in the case of this first problem, or these three examples, you could see that we are able to factorize trinomials. So we have our three trinomials here, three examples, each of these unique in their own way. So the first one when we are factoring trinomials, it's basically trying to undo or reverse the FOIL process. So we need to identify two things, the middle term and the end term. We have to consider what are what multiples make our final term, which is our constant, and do those multiples add up to the middle term. So we notice that since everything is positive, these are the simplest of cases, everything is positive. And I know that 3 and 5 are multiplied to equal 15. And I also note that 3 and 5 also add up to 8, giving us our middle term. So then we can state, just using parentheses, our final factored form of our trinomial as x plus 3 times x plus 5. But they tend to get a little bit trickier. Note the second example. Now our middle term is negative. And our our constant is positive. So we have to think of two terms that multiply to 14, but add up to -9. Since we have a negative in between, we know that, and our final term is positive, we know that the two terms are going to be negative. The factors that multiply to 14 are -2 times -7, which add up to -9, because -7 plus -2 equals -9. So then we can state the factored form of our trinomial as x minus 2 times x minus 7. Now they get a little bit trickier even further if you look at our third example. Note, our constant is negative. Our middle term is also negative, but our middle term could be positive. But in this case, because it's negative, that actually helps us out. Our last term is negative, meaning one term is positive, one term is negative, because a positive times a negative gives me a negative result. And since my middle term is negative, then I know that the larger term of the product, which makes 36, the larger term is going to be the negative value. So I know that 36, and I mean, there's other ways you can get 36, obviously. But in this case, since our middle term is -5, we think of all the different ways we can make 36. So we think of the factor 2, we have 4, and so on. We can keep going. So you come up with the factors 4 and -9. So 4 times -9 we know is -36, but do they sum up to -5? Well, if I have -9 and I add 4, or if I have 4 minus 9, I know I'm going to get -5. Since I've identified that, I can come up with my factored form of my trinomial as x plus 4 times x minus 9.